we turn now from historic baseball to, of course, I don't know, matters
future of our
involving
country?
a constitutional crisis. John Meacham, I don't know exactly how we put this right now, because this could just be the beginning. Maybe they get Manafort. Maybe they get Manafort and Podesta. You don't know, but maybe they get Manafort. Yeah, Tony Podesta, of course. Maybe they get Manafort and it's on a lesser charge and they just get him to start talking. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know it begins today.
Churchill once said it's not the beginning of the end, but it's the end of the beginning. And I think that's probably applicable here. Clearly, if this reporting is accurate, the special counsel has found sufficient cause and some Americans on a grand jury to say that there's a reasonable suspicion that there was significant wrongdoing, presumably involving President Trump's circle at least. And whether this is a chess move to flip someone lower on the chain or whether it's a very interesting all the way, then we'll find out soon.
One thing we do know, Caddy, that the frantic tweets and the inexplicable op-eds from last week, the inexplicable editorials, the inexplicable attacks on Hillary Clinton, somebody who lost a year ago, right? It's because they all knew this was coming. Everybody is frantic inside the White House. They've been trying to figure it out sometime. And so the Republicans, all last week, were trying to go after a man of the utmost integrity and try to soil his name.
Yeah, I mean, there were kind of plumes of smoke coming from Donald Trump's phone yesterday morning as he was, twofold. One, it seemed to reflect a certain amount of disquiet in the White House, and second, going back to the old tactic that he has of deflection, right? I'm under attack on Russia, so I will attack out on Russia, which is what he was doing on Hillary Clinton and trying to change, the subject. And I think the issue will be when the indictments come, who they are and what they might know that might get closer to the White House. So whether it's, if it's Paul Manafort, it's somebody close to Paul Manafort, how much do they know that Donald Trump might have known?
And what's interesting, Mika, is if it is Manafort, a lot of people have said, well, they'll pardon, Donald Trump will pardon whomever. At some point. That's, of course, that starts the not so long march to impeachment one way or the other, whether it's now or a year from now. But if it's Manafort, New York's going after him now. So Donald Trump's pardons won't apply any charges against Manafort, which will obviously be brought in the state of New York.
So before we get Clinton here, let's go through the details. At any moment, one or more people could be taken into custody after a federal grand jury approved its first charges in Bob Mueller's investigation into any links or coordination between the Russian government and those tied to President Trump. Key figures in Mueller's probe include former White House National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who left the White House after controversy over his discussions with the Russian ambassador, and later registered as a foreign agent for his work for Turkey during the campaign, which was undisclosed on his financial disclosure report. And former Trump campaign strategist and chairman Paul Manafort. In June, Manafort retroactively registered as a foreign agent for his work with a pro-Russian Ukrainian political party. And Mueller's team raided Manafort's Virginia home in the early morning hours last July. Politico reports that Mueller's prosecutors brought the realtor who helped Manafort buy the Alexandria apartment before a grand jury last week. In an interview with the New York Times on Thursday, before news of an impending indictment, White House Special Counsel Ty Cobb said of Manafort and Flynn, the president has no concerns in terms of any impact as to what happens to them on his campaign or on the White House. I think he would be sad for them as a friend and a former colleague if the process results in punishment or indictments, but to the extent that that happens, that's beyond his control.
Clint,
wow.
So what are your thoughts on this Monday morning as we move towards an indictment of at least one of the president's men?
Yeah, I think the case that's gone on the longest is always the one you suspect, and that would be Manafort. I mean, this is going back over a year now when we really think about it. We've seen the most aggressive action in that case. You also can look at Manafort's team. Remember, he made a switch in his legal team a while back, focusing kind of on taxes. So there could be lots of different charges that come through that. It could be a money laundering kind of charge. It could be tax evasion. So all of it would make me think that. But you also look at Flynn. I mean, Flynn has been around for many months now in this investigation. This goes right after the inauguration. So if it was making a false official statement or not disclosing something on your SF-86 or your security clearance form, that could be a big part of it as well. So I think as we look forward, what people should remember is they don't always go out and do a high-profile arrest in these cases, particularly if it's white collar. It's very common to notify the lawyer of the person and say, would you turn yourself in at a pre-disclosed time? And so that may be going on today. We may not see the typical FBI spectacular arrest scene that people think of in television. It doesn't always happen that way.
No.
So, a question for you, Clint. It could be not necessarily Manafort or Flynn themselves. It could be somebody associated with them, right?
I think it's super important for us to know that in a lot of big investigations like this, you start with very, people that are lower on the totem pole and you march your way up. So this could be somebody we've never heard of before that has not made the news.
And the White House has no clue, it appears.
Right.
I mean, from what we know, even personally, the phone lines were burning last night at the White House with last-minute attempts to try and figure out what's going on.
That's right.
As we mentioned, go ahead.
This
Harold.
is a huge test for Bob Mueller, too, though. We focused on his integrity. For the last several months, we focused on how serious he is, how well respected he is. And I do think there's something to what's been said on this show and others, that if you're not able to find a link to the president in some of this right away, I hear everything you're saying, Clinton, maybe someone we've not heard of, someone low level. No, this is a politicized conversation as well. So I'm going to be curious. I think this is as much a test of Mueller today, whether it's fair or not, as anything else. And Joe, I don't know if you have an opinion on that, but I think there's been so much, you and Mika both, there's been so much politicization around this. This is a big, big moment. And if there's not someone that you can directly link to the White House or directly link to someone directly around the president, his family or someone, I think some people will lose some interest, and you may see more editorials like you saw in the Wall Street Journal. Now, I have no clue, but I do think, again, this is a test for Mr. Mueller as well.
Well, and he's not going to start by indicting the President of the United States. I mean, he is...
No doubt about it, but there's got to be a link. There's got to be, so you got to be able to draw something because the interest here is about the President and the White House. That's what we've been talking about.
At the same time, if somebody broke the law, somebody broke the law. If Flynn broke the law, Flynn broke the law. And if he broke the law when he was in a position where he was about to be our national security advisor, possibly the most important position around a president in keeping this country safe.
That touches the president.
Then that is connected to the president. If it's Paul Manafort, a guy the president selected, even though he had questionable background, and this guy is running the president's campaign, you go to the RNC and you're like, wait a second, why are we changing the platform? Doesn't make sense. Weren't we Republicans supposed to be tough on Russia? We were tough on the Soviet Union. We were tough on Putin. But wait a second. Now suddenly we're going to change the platform, and then we find out it's Paul Manafort. And then you've got Don Jr., and you've got Manafort, and you've got Jared, and you've got everybody else in that meeting. And this meeting, we keep learning more and more about the meeting in Don Jr.'s office, which they're now trying to pass off, actually, as what are they calling it again? Opposition research? Let me tell you something. I didn't have any former Soviet leaders or Russians or Chinese in my office.
Let me be clear, neither did I.
You didn't either. And by the way, not only did we not have any Russians, not only we have nobody we ever knew in politics ever took a meeting with an enemy, which Russia considers itself an enemy of the United States of America, in the middle of a little congressional campaign, let alone in the middle of a presidential campaign. So there is smoke there. There is fire there. We have more information on the Russian lawyer who was there, who actually went back, gave her information to a Russian agent. They were all part of something much bigger, and we still don't know what's happening. But I suspect Bob Mueller, very careful guy, Mueller's not going to swing for the fences. He's going to, in baseball parlance, he's going for a single, and he's going to get it.
One of the big challenges that we have to remember, and I agree with Harold on this, is the Mueller investigation does have some boundaries on time. So he, a normal...
That's the only point I make. I think that's the only point I make.
A normal investigation, 2-3 years long in a white-collar case or something like this, he's really got a very short time to advance the ball on this case. And so I would not be surprised, like Harold said, if he is making deliberate steps to try and show progress.
Well, and from what Meek and I heard yesterday, John Meacham, this is going to get close to the president. An indictment will get close to the president based on all of the reporting we did yesterday. It may not be today, but it's getting close to the president.
Yeah. And one of the great questions, and the last 9 months, 10 months show us that I think there's a lot of reason to worry is how does the president politically and constitutionally react to a legal provocation? And I think we saw yesterday morning in that series of tweets that Nixon spoke to the portraits. Trump was tweeting at them yesterday. And I think there's a significant question here. Does he have the capacity to restrain himself?
No.
Or will he, in a fit of fury?
Hey, John, let me answer
How about
that
we let the
for you.
viewer decide and
Let me-
read these
okay,
tweets?
Let me answer that for you. No, he does not.
Okay, or
which
Joe can
means
answer.
politically, the damaging part of this may not come with the indictments today.
No, it's gonna be his response.
The most politically damaging part of this will be his reaction to what happens today. Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.